Hi folks, this is Leighton Phillips from SFuels, and thanks for joining our training recipes series. This is the bike session that we're going to walk through today. And if you wish to download the PDF, you can see the QR code on the right hand side here, and that'll bring down both the swim, the bike, and the run training recipes in this PDF. So let's jump into this, the bike session. And how we do this is break up into really three different types of bike sessions that give you a model to characterize how to use the zone-based nutrition from SFuels most effectively to maximize the adaptions, whether they're aerobic adaptions or threshold adaptions or more VO2 max adaptions. So on the left-hand side, you have your more shorter duration and typically mixed with some higher intensity intervals. In the middle, you have your classic aerobic training session. On the right, the bike run brick. So let's jump into this. On the left-hand side, so this is typically a 60 to 90 minute ride, and inside of that sits a number of high-intensity intervals. Now, typically these are between 3 and 8 minutes thereabouts, and then there's a rest between each interval, etc. Now, on such high-intensity sessions, clearly energy stores are significantly drawn upon, and therefore we want to think about how we use nutrition coming into the workout and during the workout. These are typically, though, these intervals spread out, and it's part of a warm-up and a warm-down that comes together in 1 or 2 hour duration ride. The focus here should really be coming into the ride with cognitive mood, ready to embrace the nature of the high-intensity characteristic of this workout. At the same time, as we get into that high intensity, we want to support with really efficient carbohydrate oxidation and really build that ability to oxidize carbohydrate at those high intensities in a really efficient way. That means we still want to be able to oxidize fat as at a higher intensity as possible, and then carbohydrate where we need to. And then this is really done at the higher threshold intensities. It's a really important point, and it has a lot to do with the timing of when we introduce the carbohydrates associated with our SFuels Zone 4 product. So let's walk through it, what you do before and during and after. So before, in really getting both the cognitive, the mind ready for the workout and really begin to up-level the fat oxidation efficiency with carnitine and caffeine, we do that with our SFuels PRIMED product. And think about taking that either 30 minutes before the workout or the first 30 minutes of the workout. And you should be drinking through a full serve of the SFuels PRIMED in that 30-minute period. Now, 30 minutes after beginning the workout is when you would begin to take your SFuels Zone 4 and think of 1 serve per hour. Now, why is it that you're having this 30-minute wait before you start on the Zone 4? Well, it takes time for the channels in the muscle to open up to glucose to come out of the blood and into the muscle cells. Usually at rest, it would require insulin to do that. But with the mechanistic movement of the muscle contractions, it is causing those muscle channels to open up to glucose without insulin. And why that's important is because when you do that without insulin, you then are creating an environment for most efficient fat and carbohydrate to be able to come into the mitochondria inside the muscle cell, be oxidized simultaneously in the most efficient manner. You want to train this in training, like in these high intensity interval sessions here on the bike. After the session, clearly, it's a fairly short session, but it's fairly taxing. And I would just say that if you're looking at a second session in the same day and you really want to accelerate replenishing the muscle with glycogen and the liver with glycogen, using our SFuels REVIVAL product post your ride will help to really accelerate carbohydrate back into the system. And by carbohydrate, this is obviously, after a session like this, an opportunity to take whole foods, whole starches, proteins, fats, etc. in your diet. Okay, the second set here is really in the middle. This is your classic, long ride. For most people, it's done on the weekend, 2 to 5 hours, mostly aerobic. It's long, it's slow, and like I said, mostly in zone 2. Now, these certainly drain energy and also your hydration and electrolyte stores. So we want to come into these sessions energized, meaning feeling satisfied from a hunger perspective, but we don't want to blunten the fat oxidation efficiency. So I'm going to show you how to do that soon with how you use the SFuels products to come into the session feeling energized, feeling satisfied, but you haven't down-regulated your fat oxidation. And then we want to maximize the aerobic adaptions with low or no carbohydrate. During the session, we want to do that with fats and amino-based fuels, and I'll talk about that in a second. Plus, obviously, stay hydrated during the ride. Okay, before the session, you want to be thinking about taking in some protein and fat. We do that with our SFuels Life Bar. This really facilitates opening up the channels for good fat oxidation efficiency. It's not really any sugar. It's like 2 grams of sugar in these bars. They're very small, so it's not going to stimulate a strong blood glucose response that causes an insulin response and therefore shuts down your fat oxidation. This is really giving you some good protein and fat to feel satisfied, some good energy, but not down-regulate your fat oxidation. As we get into the ride, and we can begin this really at 30 minutes or really sooner if you wish to, if it's a hot ambient environment that you're training in, the SFuels Zone 2. Now, this is basically a fusion of fats, medium chain fats with glutamine, and both of those things together is going to support maximal aerobic adaptions in your Zone 2 long, slow aerobic sessions on the bike. And you just continue drinking that through the bike, and it comes with a bunch of electrolytes in sodium and potassium and a little bit of calcium, etc. Post a session like this, it's a good time to obviously take in some quality protein, some ketones, some glutamine to really facilitate good recovery from a long session like this. When it's such a long session, mixing that in with some carbohydrate, typically fruit, is fine. And this is a great time period, of course, just to add whole foods, whether it's proteins, starches, and fats, in recovering from those long aerobic Zone 2 sessions on the weekend on the bike. Okay, then on the right-hand side is your bike run brick. Now, these are typically shorter, 1 to 2 hours. They're typically high intensity, and in most cases, they're trying to simulate a number of the parameters that we typically face on race day. That's both the ambient temperature, that is the nature of just switching from the bike and the mechanistic muscles of the bike and the run, and then secondly, obviously, the nutrition associated with all of that. Okay, before a session like this, again, we want to really upregulate both the cognitive focus to embrace the bike run brick. We want to upregulate the fat oxidation with our carnitine and caffeine in SFuels Prime. Take 1 serve of that the hour before you start the brick. And then it's really a function of the nature of intensity for your bike and your run within the brick. If it's just an aerobic session of the bike and the run, then using our SFuels Zone 2, 1 serve per hour on the bike and in the run is sufficient. If these are rather more threshold sessions where you're really in higher intensities for the bike and the run, using our Zone 4, 1 serve per hour on the bike and on the run is sufficient. If you're really trying to simulate race day, though, you really want to be thinking about taking our 2 SFuels serves of Zone 4 on the bike. That is at 60 grams per hour. And that is really the dosage we are recommending for using our Zone 4 during racing. And then when you get into the run part of your brick and you're trying to simulate race day, shifting to our SFuels Zone 5 gel and 1 of those per hour. It's like 58 to 60 grams, somewhere around that per hour. And that's more than sufficient for the run. Post a session like this, again, particularly if it's a high intensity brick, using our revival and the ketones, the protein, and the glutamine will help to just recover both muscle damage and also just protein support for the muscles to get into your next workout. Okay, so folks, if you want to download also our training recipe guide on the left or our racing recipes, you can hit that QR code in the middle there, and it'll take you to our website to do just that. Thanks very much for joining, and I look forward to seeing you join our run and our swim training recipe series. Thanks for joining. Bye.